Well, as we've just been seeing, shocking earth tremors in New Zealand today, and meanwhile overseas, tremors of a very different kind are still rocking Libya in North Africa. The regime of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, founded as it has been on more than 40 years of fear and brutality, appears to be crumbling. In Tripoli, the capital, Gaddafi's forces are struggling to maintain control. The country's second city, Benghazi, appears to have fallen to anti-Gaddafi protesters. Around the world, Libyan diplomats have been resigning in protest while the world looks on, wringing its hands but not really doing a lot. But regime change, if and when that happens, will come at great human cost. Already hundreds of Libyans have been killed in the violence, with reports that Gaddafi has even ordered military aircraft to bomb his own people.
بنبين لهم اننا يعني في طرابلس ونعيش في فنزويلا ما تصدقوا الاذاعات الكلاب هذه الضال.
And with that, the enigmatic colonel put paid to the rumours circulating the world. Gaddafi is still in the country and, according to the man himself, still in control, despite the chaos and indications to the contrary. Over the past 24 hours, the protests in his country of just over 5 million have spread further and wider, with Gaddafi's ruthless forces used in the crackdown.
The violence, the brutality, that has got to stop. That is completely unacceptable. And I've argued this before with a slightly harder edge and a slightly clearer agenda on what Libya needs to do to be a reliable country in the future.
There are reports of foreign mercenaries being used against the Libyan people, though a largely closed media in Libya makes this difficult to confirm. Support for Gaddafi from his own military is said to be crumbling. The pilots of these Libyan Mirage F-1 fighter jets who landed in Malta say they defected after they were ordered to bomb their own people. Protesters appear to be in control of much of Benghazi, Libya's second largest city, where government buildings were set alight. Pro-democracy demonstrators are also in command in Al Baida, 125 miles from Benghazi. In the capital Tripoli, where protests have only come in recent days, more than 100 people are reported killed as protesters attacked police stations and took over 2 of Libya's state-run satellite news channels. Meanwhile, in Washington and at the UN in New York, Libyan diplomats have turned on Gaddafi, their so-called brother leader, pledging their support with the Libyan people.
We just made the statement to ask the international community to intervene, to do something to help the Libyan people who is facing genocide now in Tripoli.
Muammar Gaddafi was once considered an arch-enemy of the West, a sponsor of terrorists, blamed for the horrific Lockerbie bombing. But in recent years he appeared to soften, change his extreme views and even became something of an ally of the West. Now, Gaddafi's Libya is a very different, uglier picture. Many believe we are in fact watching what could be the final hours for the longest-serving Arab leader in the world. By the way, we hear that the Libyan embassy in Canberra officially broke ranks this afternoon and joined the growing list of ex-Gaddafi diplomats in expressing their support for the anti-Gaddafi forces back home. Is another Arab despot's domino about to fall? Stay tuned. As is the way with these things in the Middle East, unrest inevitably leads to jitters over oil. In London overnight, the price of Brent crude hit a 2.5-year high of $105 a barrel. And in the United States, West Texas crude topped $90. Eddie Meyer joins us now. Eddie, Libya's not a big player in global oil terms, so why is everyone spooked?
Frankly, George, when it comes to this region, it really doesn't take very much. The majority of the world's top 12 oil exporters are in the Middle East and North Africa. Saudi Arabia is at number 1. It exports 7.3 million barrels a day. In that pack are also Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait and Iraq. Now, Libya comes in at number 12. It produces just 2% of the world's supply, but most of that goes to Europe. Without these global tensions, conditions would have meant oil prices falling right now. But at one stage overnight, they actually shot up by 7 or 8%. And what it comes down to, fear over just how far all of this could spread.
If you want to look at specifics, I guess it's the fact that we're seeing oil companies actually starting to cut production in the region, pulling out staff, and this is something we haven't seen since the start of this whole crisis when unrest started in Tunisia a couple of months ago. Added to which, I guess it's the fear that will we see potential supply cuts in oil across the globe, and in particular in the European zone, given that the Suez Canal goes through that region and supplies about 3 million barrels of oil to Europe on a daily basis.
So now to the impact, and here petrol prices have been relatively stable recently thanks to a strong Aussie dollar, but for how long?
We wouldn't anticipate that to change in the next week, but in the longer term, if you see this sustained higher oil prices on a global front, we're anticipating it could add about 5 cents a litre to the national average price in a fortnight's time. Now that takes the price up to $1.40 a litre, but you take the top end of the cycle and you see petrol prices well above $1.50 a litre on signboards around Australia.
So it might be a world away, George, but we won't escape the impact here.
Can't mention that part of the world without mentioning the O word, oil. Thanks, Eddie. Still ahead, the heartbreaking death of Zara Baker in the US. We talked to her dad after his wife was charged with Zara's murder. But here's what's happening next on 10's News. By now, most of us, I think, have heard about the heartbreaking murder of Australian Zara Baker, the little cancer survivor who was horrifically killed, dismembered and buried in the American state of North Carolina. Today, her stepmother was formally charged with murder, and the prosecutors claim she acted alone. But there's always been questions surrounding Zara's dad, Adam. He spoke today after his wife was indicted for murder. Here's 6pm's Emma Dallimore.
Lisa's very manipulative, abusive.
To you?
Yeah, to me.
That's how Adam Baker describes his wife, just moments after she'd been charged with the despicable murder of his 10-year-old girl. According to police, Zara suffered repeated abuse before her American stepmother allegedly killed, decapitated, then discarded her like she'd never existed. A crime her father still says he knew nothing about. Adam called 911 after finding a ransom note. We'd later learn that was forged by his wife. What we also know now is Zara was dead 2 weeks before that call was made. So if Adam wasn't involved, how did he go a fortnight without noticing his daughter wasn't there?
I was gone first thing in the morning, didn't get home till late. Was told that Zara was in bed because Zara normally went to bed early. I checked every night. From what I could tell, she was in bed. It looked like she was in bed. There was something in bed.
Today, investigators said they believe him, saying Elisa acted alone. Sadly, most in the town of Hickory, where all this happened, seemed aware the little Australian with the prosthetic leg and the hearing aid was being systematically beaten.
That particular day, she slapped the young'un on its bad leg, shook it.
When she hit her on the hip there and jerked her shoulders, I started to say something to her. I wish I had.
But others did. The Department of Social Services investigated 4 separate complaints that Zara was being abused, but never found any evidence. Their last investigation closed in August. 6 weeks later, Zara was murdered. It's believed Elisa led police to Zara's remains. A number of bones, including her skull, are still missing. Police on the case, who called themselves Team Zara, openly wept when they realised hope was gone.
Curious. Emma Dallimore in the US. We had promised a report tonight about the upcoming Rugby World Cup in New Zealand, but for all the obvious reasons, given the events in Christchurch, we've held back on that story and we'll bring it to you sometime down the track. More on the Christchurch earthquake next on 10 News, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6.